Okay, so get this. We're talking about AI that does science.
Hmm.
Like, not just analyzes data, but, like, does science.
Right.
Asks the questions, runs the experiments, writes the research paper, the whole shebang.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like something out of Star Trek, you know?
Yeah.
But it's happening right now.
It is pretty wild, and it really has the potential to, like, completely change how we understand the world.
Yeah.
We could be talking about accelerating discoveries, breaking down the walls of academia.
It's huge.
Totally.
So we're diving into Sakana AI's AI scientist.
Okay.
And it's not just a fancy name.
Mm.
This thing is the real deal.
Yeah.
It's designed to mimic how human scientists actually work, but without the coffee breaks and grant proposal headaches.
Exactly. And this isn't some far-off concept.
What?
This AI scientist is already producing research papers. There's one in particular on something called adaptive dual-scale denoising.
Okay.
Now, before you think this is some super technical jargon,
Right.
it essentially boils down to making images clearer,
Okay.
like removing noise from a photo, but way more advanced.
So it's like noise cancellation, but for really complex data.
Exactly. And you can check out the actual paper.
Oh, wow.
We'll link to it in the show notes.
Awesome.
And what's really interesting is that the AI, even at this early stage, was able to pinpoint some areas for improvement in its own work.
Really?
It's like it did its own peer review,
Wow.
just like a human research team would.
Hold on. It was self-aware enough to critique its own paper.
Wow.
That's both amazing and kind of spooky in a good way.
It is remarkable. Now,
Yeah.
the paper wasn't flawless. It tended to overshare its experimental results, and sometimes its interpretations of what was successful weren't quite on the mark.
Interesting.
But, and this is key, it recognized these shortcomings itself.
Wow.
That's a huge step.
So it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But the fact that it can even generate a research paper at all
Right.
is kind of mind-blowing to me.
It is.
But what really hooks me is how it does it.
Yeah.
It's like this AI cracked the code on the scientific method itself.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just replicating the output,
Right.
but the actual process
Yeah.
of scientific inquiry.
Okay, so walk us through it.
Okay.
How does this AI actually do science? What are
There-
the steps?
They've broken it down into 4 key steps.
Okay.
First is brainstorming.
Okay.
Imagine the AI has this massive vocabulary and understanding of information thanks to something called a large language model, or LLM for short.
Okay, so kind of like a super-powered version of those predictive text things on our phones.
Exactly, but on a much grander scale.
Okay.
It uses this LLM to brainstorm, just like you and I, but at lightning speed.
Right.
So it might start with a topic like machine learning,
Okay.
and then use its LLM to explore all sorts of specific research questions within that field.
Okay, cool. So what happens after the brainstorming session?
Next comes experimentation.
Okay.
The AI designs and runs experiments, even generating those graphs and charts
Wow.
that are a staple of any good research paper.
Talk about efficiency.
I know.
No late-night lab sessions for this AI.
Precisely. And then we move on to step 3.
Okay.
Right? This is where the AI takes all of its findings from those experiments
Mm-hmm.
and writes them up in a proper scientific paper,
Wow.
even searching for and including relevant citations.
So it's not just spitting out data, it's
Right.
putting it all together in a way that's
Yeah,
meant to be read and understood.
exactly. And finally, we come to the peer review stage.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Right.
Another LLM,
Okay.
almost like a fresh set of AI eyes, steps in to act as the reviewer.
Oh, wow.
It provides feedback on the paper just like a human would,
Wow.
and suggests areas for further exploration.
So the AI is basically checking its own work.
It is.
That's incredible.
It's designed to be self-critical, which allows it to identify its weaknesses. And areas for improvement, remember those imperfections we mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
Those were actually caught during this internal peer review process.
This is honestly blowing me away.
Yeah.
It's like this AI scientist is hardwired to push the boundaries of what we know.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What does it mean to have AI actively participating in scientific discovery?
Right.
Does this challenge our whole definition of intelligence?
If an AI can conduct research and write it up and even critique its own work, where does that leave us? It's
Yeah.
almost like we've got a whole new kind of collaborator in the lab.
It is. It's a profound thought, and it's one that we're going to have to grapple with more and more as AI becomes more sophisticated.
For sure.
But, beyond the philosophical implications, there are some very real-world impacts to consider here.
Right.
Especially when it comes to the pace of scientific discovery.
Hmm.
I mean, research that used to take years could be done in a matter of months, maybe even weeks.
That's wild with
Wow.
this kind of technology.
Yeah, and it's not just about speed, right?
Right.
This has the potential to make scientific exploration accessible to pretty much anyone,
Absolutely.
not just big universities and corporations with tons of resources.
And it's not just hypothetical.
Right.
Our sources specifically talk about the potential impact in Japan.
Okay.
They're facing a shortage of AI researchers,
Mm-hmm.
and this technology could be a game changer for them.
Right.
Imagine being able to bridge that gap, allowing Japan to stay at the forefront of research and development.
It's like putting the power of a whole research team in the hands of anyone with a good idea.
So as we wrap up here, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to walk away with today?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that we are potentially seeing the start of a whole new era in scientific progress.
Mm-hmm.
For centuries, scientific discovery has been limited by well-being human,
Right.
but now AI is stepping into the role of the scientist.
That's really something.
It's incredibly exciting and maybe a little bit daunting at the same time.
It's definitely a lot to take in.
It is.
A future where AI isn't just helping scientists,
Yeah.
but making discoveries right alongside them or even on their own.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Huge thank you to our expert for breaking down this incredible development and to our listeners.
Thank you.
Keep those minds open and questioning. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.